As long as I can remember, it's been said that no one is safe when when Congress is in session.
I think that's true.
My friend Bruce Rampelberg serves in the South Dakota State Senate, District 30, and I think you and I would agree that man, everything's on the table when it comes time for legislature to convene.
I agree. I think that people think about things throughout the year, and there's a lot of good ideas and maybe some good ideas that aren't so good, but they'll all be kind of hitting the LRC and bills being put together, and a lot of people talking about a number of issues, and I think we're going to have some very interesting debate this year.
Well, and that, I believe that's true whether you live in North Dakota, Minnesota, or anywhere in the country. Legislatures are about to let the hammer drop. One of the issues that's really front and center is Common Core. Bruce, tell us where you stand on that.
Sure. You know, the Common Core standards have been around for, I think, since about 2006 that they really kind of began the process. They originated from the Conference of Governors, and there's a lot of information out there about the history of how it was developed. Actually, in South Dakota, something that most people don't realize is we have had standards for many years that the Department of Education in our state has developed and promulgated, and they've rolled them out to the various schools, and each school then knows what the standards are for South Dakota. Well, back in 2010, when this was presented to the legislature, Department of Education, as I understand it, compared the standards for what was coming down the pike in this ones from this governor's organization to what we actually have in South Dakota, and they went back and forth to make sure that they were as rigorous, if you will, as South Dakota standards already were. And what they found was that they were very similar, very, very close. So the issue really, as I see it, is who is telling us what standards in South Dakota we have to adopt. Now, we already have standards. We feel comfortable that they are adequate, and now we have another group of standards. Now, here's the issue. We have two issues. One, we have a problem. My daughter-in-law came here from Ohio. She took a $10,000 pay cut to come and be married to my son from teaching in Ohio, basically teaching in elementary school. And she found that the kids here are behind where the kids are in third grade in Ohio. So without standards that encourage people to step up, how do you, throughout the states, have kids move from one state to the other, if you will, and not know that they're either way behind or way ahead? Well, we don't have that right now across the country. How do we do that? I don't know the answer. But the other issue is, when do we move away from local control? Because I don't believe any of us think that the federal government is going to do a better job than we will with local control.
Well, I believe you're wrong on that point. In this sense, you say none of us believe that. I believe the governor of South Dakota must believe that, because he is implementing Common Core, which is a federal dictate. Some people call it Obama Core, not Common Core. Why is the governor advancing Common Core, and yes or no, do you support him in that?
Yes, I support him. That's a difficult question, because I believe that we have two sides of this issue, and what we need to do is find a path between them that represents the best interests of South Dakota. And so as we are looking at bills this year, I'm going to be saying, guys, okay, I don't like parts of this Common Core standards, but I don't want to throw it out with the wash. What can we do as a state legislature that will make it better for South Dakotans rather than having this come down from on high?
Well, if you adopt any of it, you accept federal dictate. So why not reject it all, and then as a state continue to upgrade our standards?
Well, I think our standards are adequate right now.
Then why do we need it?
But the point is that we want to unify with the other states. I think that's the overpowering.
Well,
but here's the thing: the Department of Education,
okay.
The board of the Department of Education, they're the ones that actually have put this in place and presented to the legislature in 2010, which you were there. I wasn't at that time, but that's, as I understand it, it came from them, not from the governor.
Well, but the governor is the one who's implementing it. Doesn't he choose his Secretary of Education? Doesn't he? Isn't he the commander-in-chief?
Yeah, absolutely. But here's the issue: that was adopted by a governor other than the current governor. It was our previous governor that actually adopted that. He's just living on what was.
So he's just continuing the flawed policy of Mike Rounds.
I'm not going to call it a flawed policy, but he is continuing what the Department of Education Board agreed upon back in the day, because theoretically they are the people that know what is best for South Dakota.
What about data collection on our kids?
Yeah, that's an issue. I think we have to have some data because we need to be able to decide which kids.
Who needs the data and who should collect it?
Only the Department of Education, and it needs to be sterilized so that it isn't something that could be identified with other people, other entities that want to know more about our kids that we don't feel is appropriate.
Okay, there's a yes, a no, and a maybe. we're going to continue in another segment, Bruce, if you're available. Stay tuned, because next week Senator Rampelberg will be back and we'll talk a little bit more about this important issue.